I stared at my son, my heart heavy with anger and disappointment. He had been ignoring me for 7 years, and now I found out he was in $85,000 debt. I had to act fast, before he lost everything. I remembered the day he was born, the first time I held him in my arms. I had promised myself that I would always be there for him, that I would always provide for him. But now, it seemed like he didn't need me anymore. I tried to call him, to talk to him about the debt, but he didn't answer. I sent him messages, but he didn't respond. I was left with no choice but to take drastic measures. I decided to set a trap for him, to catch him off guard and make him listen. I knew it was a risk, but I was willing to do whatever it took to save my son. I started by calling a debt collector, someone who could help me track down my son and make him pay. I gave them all the information I had, and they promised to take care of it. But as I waited for the debt collector to do their job, I couldn't help but think about the past. I thought about all the times I had tried to reach out to my son, all the times I had tried to talk to him. I thought about all the times he had ignored me, all the times he had hurt me. I felt a wave of anger wash over me, and I knew that I had to calm down. I took a few deep breaths, and I tried to focus on the task at hand. I waited for what felt like an eternity, but finally, the debt collector called me back. They told me that they had found my son, that they had set up a meeting for us to discuss the debt. I was nervous, but I was also relieved. I knew that this was my chance to finally talk to my son, to finally make him listen. I arrived at the meeting early, my heart racing with anticipation. I saw my son walking towards me, and I felt a mix of emotions. I was angry, but I was also sad. I was hurt, but I was also determined. "I'm giving you 1 week to pay me back," I said, looking him straight in the eye. "If you don't, I'll have no choice but to take action." My son looked at me, shocked and scared. He didn't know what to say, and I didn't expect him to. I just wanted him to listen, to understand the gravity of the situation. But as I looked at him, I saw something that gave me hope. I saw a glimmer of recognition, a glimmer of understanding. And I knew that maybe, just maybe, I could save my son after all. But little did I know, my son had a secret that would change everything. And as I stood there, waiting for him to respond, I had no idea what was about to hit me. My son looked at me, his eyes wide with fear. He knew he was in trouble, and he knew he had to think fast. He took a deep breath, and then he spoke. "Dad, I don't know what to say," he stammered. "I know I've been ignoring you, and I know I've been in debt. But please, just listen to me. I have a plan, and I can pay you back. Just give me a chance." I looked at him, skeptical. I had heard it all before, and I wasn't buying it. But something about his tone, something about the desperation in his eyes, made me hesitate. I decided to hear him out. "What's your plan?" I asked, my voice firm but controlled. My son took another deep breath, and then he launched into a long, rambling explanation. He told me about his business, about how he had invested all his money in a startup that was supposed to make him rich. He told me about how it had failed, about how he was left with nothing. And he told me about how he had been trying to pay off his debt, but it was too much for him to handle alone. I listened to him, my mind racing. I was trying to process everything he was telling me, trying to separate the truth from the lies. And as I listened, I started to feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, my son was telling the truth. Maybe he really did have a plan, and maybe he really could pay me back. But just as I was starting to feel optimistic, I saw something that made my blood run cold. I saw a woman standing in the corner of the room, a woman I had never seen before. She was tall and blonde, with piercing green eyes that seemed to bore into my soul. And she was watching us, watching us with an intensity that made me feel uneasy. "Who is that?" I asked my son, my voice low and even. My son followed my gaze, and then he hesitated. That's my business partner," he stammered. We're working together to pay off the debt." I looked at the woman again, and this time I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. I saw a flash of recognition, a flash of guilt. And I knew, in that moment, that something was wrong. I turned back to my son, my eyes narrowing. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice firm. "What's really going on?" My son looked at me, his eyes darting back and forth. He was nervous, and he was scared. And I knew, in that moment, that he was hiding something from me. But before he could answer, the woman spoke up. "I think it's time we told you the truth," she said, her voice low and husky. "The truth about the debt, and the truth about your son's business." I turned to her, my eyes locked on hers. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my voice even. The woman smiled, a cold, calculating smile. "We're talking about the fact that your son's business is not what it seems," she said. "We're talking about the fact that he's in deeper trouble than you could ever imagine." I felt a wave of fear wash over me, a wave of uncertainty. I didn't know what to believe, and I didn't know what to do. But I knew one thing for sure, I was going to get to the bottom of this, no matter what it took. "Tell me," I said, my voice firm. "Tell me everything." The woman smiled again, and then she began to speak. She told me about my son's business, about how it was a front for something much bigger. She told me about the debt, about how it was just the tip of the iceberg. And she told me about the people involved, about how they would stop at nothing to get what they wanted. I listened to her, my mind reeling. I was trying to process everything she was telling me, trying to make sense of it all. And as I listened, I felt a sense of unease growing inside me. I knew that I was in over my head, and I knew that I needed to be careful. But I also knew that I couldn't back down. I had to keep pushing, had to keep digging until I uncovered the truth. And so I asked the woman more questions, pressing her for details. And as I asked, I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. I saw my son's eyes flicker to the woman, saw a flash of warning. And I knew, in that moment, that he was hiding something from me. Something big. "What is it?" I asked, my voice low and even. "What are you hiding from me?" My son looked at me, his eyes darting back and forth. He was nervous, and he was scared. And I knew, in that moment, that I was getting close to the truth. But before he could answer, the woman spoke up again. "I think it's time we showed you something," she said, her voice low and husky. "Something that will make everything clear." I looked at her, my eyes narrowing. "What is it?" I asked, my voice firm. The woman smiled again, and then she pulled out a small folder. "This," she said, her voice even. "This is the proof you need. Proof of everything we've been telling you." I took the folder, my heart racing. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew it was going to be big. And as I opened the folder, I saw something that made my blood run cold. It was a photograph of my son and the woman. They were standing together, smiling and happy. But it was what was behind them that made my heart skip a beat. It was a building I recognized. It was the headquarters of a company I had heard of before. A company that was rumored to be involved in some shady dealings. I looked at my son, my eyes narrowing. "What is this?" I asked, my voice low and even. My son looked at me, his eyes darting back and forth. He was nervous, and he was scared. And I knew, in that moment, that he was in deeper trouble than I could ever imagine. But before he could answer, the woman spoke up again. I think it's time we told you the rest of the story, she said, her voice low and husky. The story of how your son got involved with this company, and how he's been trying to get out. I looked at her, my eyes locked on hers. Tell me, I said, my voice firm. And as she began to speak, I knew that I was in for a wild ride. A ride that would take me to the depths of deceit and betrayal, and one that would change my life forever. The woman began to speak, her voice low and husky. Your son, he's a smart kid, she said. He's always been driven to succeed. But sometimes, that drive can lead people to make mistakes. I listened intently, my eyes locked on hers. What kind of mistakes? I asked, my voice firm. The woman hesitated, her eyes darting to my son. He got in over his head, she said. He invested in a company that promised him the world, but it was all a lie. I felt a wave of anger wash over me, a wave of betrayal. What company? I demanded, my voice rising. The woman hesitated again, her eyes locked on mine. It's a company called Omicron Incorporated, she said. They're a shell company, a front for something much bigger. I knew the name, I had heard it before. Omicron Incorporated was a company that was shrouded in mystery, a company that was rumored to be involved in some shady dealings. I looked at my son, my eyes narrowing. What did you do? I asked, my voice low and even. My son looked at me, his eyes darting back and forth. I invested in their startup, he said. I thought it was a good opportunity, but it turned out to be a scam. I felt a wave of disappointment wash over me, a wave of sadness. My son had always been a smart kid, but it seemed like he had made a grave mistake. How much did you invest? I asked, my voice firm. My son hesitated, his eyes locked on mine. I invested everything, he said. I put all my savings into it, and I even took out a loan. I felt a wave of anger wash over me, a wave of frustration. My son had been so foolish, so naive. I looked at the woman, my eyes narrowing. What do you have to do with all of this? I asked, my voice low and even. The woman smiled, a cold, calculating smile. I'm an investigator, she said. I've been tracking Omicron Incorporated for months, trying to bring them down. I looked at her, my eyes locked on hers. Why? I asked, my voice firm. The woman hesitated, her eyes darting to my son. Because they're not just any company, she said. They're a front for a much larger organization, an organization that's been involved in some very shady dealings. I felt a wave of fear wash over me, a wave of uncertainty. I didn't know what to believe, but I knew that I had to be careful. I looked at my son, my eyes narrowing. What do you know about this organization? I asked, my voice low and even. My son looked at me, his eyes darting back and forth. I don't know much, he said. But I do know that they're powerful, and they'll stop at nothing to get what they want. I felt a wave of anger wash over me, a wave of determination. I was going to get to the bottom of this, no matter what it took. I was going to find out who was behind Omicron Incorporated, and I was going to make them pay. I looked at the woman, my eyes locked on hers. I want to help you, I said. I want to help you bring them down. The woman smiled, a cold, calculating smile. I knew you'd be interested, she said. But it's not going to be easy. We're talking about a very powerful organization, an organization that will stop at nothing to keep their secrets safe. I nodded, my mind racing. I knew that I was in over my head, but I was willing to take the risk. I was willing to do whatever it took to protect my son, and to bring down the people who had hurt him. The woman handed me a folder filled with documents and photographs. This is what we have so far, she said. But we need more. We need proof, proof that will bring them down once and for all. I took the folder, my eyes scanning the contents. It was a lot to take in, but I was determined to get to the bottom of it. I was determined to find out who was behind Omicron Incorporated, and to make them pay. I looked at my son, my eyes narrowing. "We're going to do this together," I said. "We're going to bring them down, no matter what it takes." My son looked at me, his eyes locked on mine. "I'm sorry, Dad," he said. "I'm sorry for everything." I smiled, a cold, calculating smile. "It's not your fault," I said. "It's theirs. And we're going to make them pay." I spent the rest of the day studying the documents and photographs in the folder. I was determined to learn as much as I could about Omicron Incorporated and the organization behind it. As I delved deeper into the files, I began to notice a pattern. The company seemed to be involved in a number of shady dealings, from money laundering to bribery. But what really caught my attention was the mention of a mysterious figure, known only as the Architect. According to the documents, the Architect was the mastermind behind Omicron Incorporated, and was rumored to be one of the most powerful people in the organization. I couldn't help but wonder who this person was, and what their ultimate goal was. As I continued to study the files, I heard a knock at the door. It was my son, who had been quietly observing me from across the room. "Dad, I need to tell you something," he said, his voice low and serious. "What is it?" I asked, looking up from the files. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened," he said. "And I think I might have remembered something important." My heart skipped a beat as I waited for him to continue. "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I remember meeting someone," he said. "A woman who claimed to be a representative of Omicron Incorporated. She was the one who convinced me to invest in the company." I felt a surge of anger at the thought of this woman, who had taken advantage of my son's naivety. "What did she look like?" I asked, my mind racing with possibilities. "She was tall and blonde," he said. "With piercing green eyes. And she had a scar above her left eyebrow." I felt a jolt of recognition at the description. I had seen that woman before, in the photograph with my son. "That's the woman who was with you in the picture," I said, my voice firm. My son nodded, his eyes wide with fear. "I think she might be involved in something big," he said. "Something that could put us all in danger." I felt a wave of fear wash over me, but I pushed it aside. I was determined to get to the bottom of this, no matter what it took. I looked at my son, my eyes locked on his. "We're going to find out what's going on," I said. "And we're going to make sure that you're safe." My son nodded, a look of determination on his face. "I'm with you, Dad," he said. "We'll do this together." I smiled, a sense of pride and purpose washing over me. I knew that we were in this together, and that we would stop at nothing to uncover the truth. As we sat there, poring over the files and trying to piece together the puzzle, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. We were playing with fire, and I knew that we were taking a huge risk. But I was determined to see it through, no matter what the cost. Suddenly, my phone rang, breaking the silence. I hesitated for a moment before answering it. "Hello?" I said, my voice cautious. "Hello, is this John?" a voice on the other end asked. "Yes, it is," I replied, my heart racing with anticipation. "My name is Alex," the voice said. "I'm a former employee of Omicron Incorporated. And I have information that could blow the lid off the whole operation." I felt a surge of excitement at the prospect of finally getting some answers. "What do you know?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I know that Omicron Incorporated is just the tip of the iceberg," Alex said. "There's a much larger organization at play here, one that's been hiding in plain sight. I felt a wave of fear wash over me, but I pushed it aside. I was determined to get to the bottom of this, no matter what it took. "Tell me more," I said, my voice firm. Alex hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I'll meet with you in person," he said. "But you have to be careful. They're watching you, John. And they'll stop at nothing to keep their secrets safe." I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized the gravity of the situation. We were in over our heads, and I knew that we had to be careful. But I was determined to see this through, no matter what the cost. "I'll be careful," I said. "Where do you want to meet?" Alex gave me a location and a time, and I agreed to meet him. As I hung up the phone, I looked at my son. "We have a lead," I said, my voice firm. "Let's go see what we can find out." I arrived at the designated location, a small cafe on the outskirts of town, and scanned the area for any signs of Alex. I spotted him sitting in the corner, nursing a cup of coffee, and made my way over to him. As I approached, he looked up and nodded in recognition. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice low and serious. I took a seat across from him and waited for him to begin. "I used to work for Omicron Incorporated," he said, his eyes darting around the cafe as if he was worried about being overheard. "I was a mid-level executive, but I had access to some sensitive information. Information that I'm willing to share with you." I leaned forward, my heart racing with anticipation. "What do you know?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Alex hesitated, glancing around the cafe again before speaking. "I know that Omicron Incorporated is just a front," he said. "A front for a much larger organization that's been hiding in plain sight." I felt a surge of excitement at the prospect of finally getting some answers. "What kind of organization?" I asked, my voice firm. Alex leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "A organization that's been involved in some very shady dealings," he said. "Deals that involve bribery, money laundering, and even murder." I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized the gravity of the situation. We were dealing with some very powerful and very ruthless people. "What's the name of this organization?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Alex hesitated, glancing around the cafe again before speaking. "I'm not sure if I should say," he said. "But I will say this, they're known only as the Syndicate. I felt a wave of fear wash over me as I realized the implications of what Alex was telling me. We were dealing with an organization that was above the law, an organization that would stop at nothing to achieve their goals. "What else do you know?" I asked, my voice firm. Alex hesitated, glancing around the cafe again before speaking. "I know that they're planning something big," he said. "Something that could change the course of history." I felt a surge of excitement at the prospect of finally getting some answers. "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Alex leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I'm not sure," he said. "But I know that it involves a major player in the financial world. Someone who has the power to make or break economies." I felt a wave of fear wash over me as I realized the implications of what Alex was telling me. We were dealing with someone who had the power to control the global economy. "Who is it?" I asked, my voice firm. Alex hesitated, glancing around the cafe again before speaking. "I'm not sure if I should say," he said. "But I will say this, it's someone who is very close to the top of the food chain." I felt a surge of excitement at the prospect of finally getting some answers. "Tell me more," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Alex leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I know that they're planning to use their influence to manipulate the market," he said. "To create a global economic crisis that will give them the power to control the world." I felt a wave of fear wash over me as I realized the gravity of the situation. We were dealing with someone who had the power to control the global economy, and they were planning to use that power to create a global economic crisis. We have to stop them, I said, my voice firm. Alex nodded in agreement. I know, he said. But it won't be easy. They have eyes and ears everywhere, and they'll stop at nothing to achieve their goals. I felt a surge of determination at the prospect of taking down the syndicate. I knew that it wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to do whatever it took to stop them. Let's do it, I said, my voice firm. Alex nodded in agreement, a look of determination on his face. Let's do it, he said. As we left the cafe, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. We were taking on a powerful organization, one that had the resources and influence to crush us. But I was determined to see this through, to expose the syndicate and bring them to justice. Alex and I walked in silence for a few blocks, our minds racing with thoughts of the task ahead. Finally, he spoke up. We need to get to a safe place, he said. Somewhere we can plan our next move without being watched. I nodded in agreement. I have a place in mind, I said. Follow me. We made our way to my apartment, a nondescript building in a quiet part of town. Once inside, I locked the door and motioned for Alex to sit down. We need to come up with a plan, I said. Something that will take down the syndicate and expose their wrongdoings. Alex nodded, his eyes intense. I have an idea, he said. But it's going to be risky. Are you sure you're ready for this? I hesitated for a moment, my heart racing with anticipation. But I knew that I had to see this through. I'm ready, I said. Alex nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. Okay, he said. Here's what we're going to do. As he began to outline his plan, I felt a surge of excitement mixed with fear. We were taking on a powerful enemy, one that would stop at nothing to silence us. But I was determined to see this through, to expose the syndicate and bring them to justice. Over the next few hours, we pored over documents and strategized our next move. We knew that we had to be careful, that one misstep could mean disaster. But we were determined to see this through, to take down the syndicate and restore justice to the world. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the city, we finally had a plan. It was bold, it was daring, and it was just crazy enough to work. I felt a surge of adrenaline as I looked at Alex, my partner in this wild adventure. Let's do it, I said, my voice firm. Alex nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. Let's do it, he said. And with that, we set our plan in motion, embarking on a journey that would take us to the very heart of the syndicate. We moved swiftly, our footsteps quiet on the streets as we made our way to our first target. A major financial institution, one that was rumored to be closely tied to the syndicate. We had to be careful, to avoid detection as we gathered evidence of their wrongdoing. But I was determined to see this through, to expose the syndicate and bring them to justice. As we approached the building, I felt a surge of excitement mixed with fear. We were taking on a powerful enemy, one that would stop at nothing to silence us. But I was determined to see this through, to take down the syndicate and restore justice to the world. I took a deep breath, my heart racing with anticipation. And with that, we slipped into the shadows, ready to begin our mission to take down the syndicate. As we slipped into the shadows, I felt a sense of determination wash over me. We were finally taking action against the syndicate, and I was ready to see it through. We moved swiftly and quietly, our footsteps echoing off the walls as we made our way to the heart of the financial institution. We had to be careful, to avoid detection as we gathered evidence of their wrongdoing. But I was determined to see this through, to expose the syndicate and bring them to justice. As we reached the main server room, I felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through my veins. This was it, the moment of truth. We quickly got to work, hacking into the system and gathering evidence of the syndicate's wrongdoing. The data was staggering, a trail of deceit and corruption that led all the way to the top. I felt a sense of satisfaction wash over me as we gathered the final piece of evidence. We had done it, we had finally exposed the syndicate. But as I turned to leave, I was met with a surprise. The CEO of the financial institution, a man I had trusted, was standing in front of me, a look of shock and anger on his face. "You fools," he spat. "You'll never take me down. I have too much power, too much influence." I smiled, a cold, calculating smile. "You're wrong," I said. "You see, we have evidence of your wrongdoing. And we're going to make sure that the world sees it too." The CEO's face turned white with rage, and for a moment, I thought he was going to attack me. But then, something seemed to snap inside of him. He let out a scream of rage, and then, he was running, fleeing the scene as fast as he could. I watched him go, a sense of satisfaction washing over me. We had done it, we had finally brought the syndicate to justice. And as I turned to leave, I was met with a surprise. Alex was standing in front of me, a smile on his face. "We did it," he said. "We finally took them down." I smiled, a sense of pride and accomplishment washing over me. "We sure did," I said. As we walked out of the building, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. We had finally brought the syndicate to justice, and I had finally found the answers I had been searching for. But as we stepped out into the sunlight, I was met with a surprise. The CEO of the financial institution was standing in front of me, a look of shock and horror on his face. And then, I saw why. The police were surrounding him, handcuffs at the ready. "It's over," one of the officers said. "You're under arrest for your crimes." I smiled, a sense of satisfaction washing over me. Justice had finally been served. And as I turned to walk away, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. I had finally found the answers I had been searching for, and I had finally brought the syndicate to justice. As I walked away from the scene, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I had finally found what I had been searching for, and I had finally brought the people responsible to justice. And as I looked up at the sky, I felt a sense of hope wash over me. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something new. Maybe this was the start of a new era, an era of justice and accountability. I smiled, a sense of optimism washing over me. I knew that there would be more challenges ahead, more battles to fight. But I was ready. I was ready to take on whatever came next, armed with the knowledge and the determination to make a difference. And as I walked away from the scene, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment wash over me. I had finally brought the syndicate to justice, and I had finally found the answers I had been searching for. I knew that this was just the beginning, but I was ready. I was ready to take on whatever came next, armed with the knowledge and the determination to make a difference. And as I disappeared into the crowd, I felt a sense of hope and optimism wash over me. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something new. Maybe this was the start of a new era, an era of justice and accountability. I smiled, a sense of satisfaction washing over me. I had finally found what I had been searching for, and I had finally brought the people responsible to justice. And as I walked away from the scene, I knew that I would never forget this moment. This was the moment when justice was finally served, and the people responsible for the syndicate's crimes were finally brought to account. I smiled, a sense of pride and accomplishment washing over me. I had finally done it, I had finally brought the syndicate to justice. And as I disappeared into the crowd, I knew that I would always remember this moment. This was the moment when justice was finally served, and the people responsible for the syndicate's crimes were finally brought to account. I smiled, a sense of satisfaction washing over me. I had finally found what I had been searching for, and I had finally brought the people responsible to justice. And as I walked away from the scene, I knew that I would never forget this moment. This was the moment when justice was finally served, and the people responsible for the syndicate's crimes were finally brought to account. I smiled, a sense of pride and accomplishment washing over me. I had finally done it, I had finally brought the syndicate to justice. And as I disappeared into the crowd, I knew that I would always remember this moment. This was the moment when justice was finally served, and the people responsible for the syndicate's crimes were finally brought to account.